So there I was, wondering if my friends had secretly joined a witness protection program. Every plan seemed like a game of tag, reschedule after reschedule until eventually, radio silence. I couldn't help but wonder, am I the problem? Or is it them? Have modern friendships changed? Or are we just worse at maintaining them? Something about the way we live now that makes keeping friendships feel like a Herculean task. I think it was around that time when I turned 20 and moved away from the city where I went to uni that I started noticing something bizarre. Friendships felt different. Finding friends was one thing, but keeping them, that was a whole another challenge. Let's dive into what makes so many of us feel so lonely and lacking in connection, even though the world feels more connected than ever. Hi, my name is Nathalie and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about friendship and the so-called loneliness epidemic. I've tried various approaches, joining classes, groups, participating in all kinds of different activities, but maintaining those connections often felt like grasping at sand. And it's not because I'm someone who demands constant attention. I'm a really low-maintenance introvert. I never needed a lot of social interactions. Still, I found myself in a very weird pattern, one I think many people can relate to. And I actually saw this in another video by Nathalie, if I'm not mistaken. I'll leave the link down below. Writer Rosie Spinks calls this the friendship problem. In her essay, she describes the exhausting reality of modern friendships. Planning to meet often feels like a logical nightmare. You schedule weeks in advance, only to have plans cancelled at the very last minute, sometimes repeatedly, so you propose another date, and this never actually happens. The cycle continues until you start to wonder, am I asking too much by simply wanting to spend time together? TV shows like Friends, How I Met Your Mother, As in the City have given us a very idealized version of friendships. They portray a world where friends are always available. They're ready to hang out at any moment, and they're deeply involved in every aspect of your life. While these shows are comforting and nostalgic, they set a little unrealistic expectations. In reality, life is messier, friends move away, they have their own lives, relationships, and maintaining those close bonds takes far more effort than what's shown on screen. So the friendship problem is particularly pronounced in big cities, where everyone seems to be juggling a never-ending list of responsibilities, work, personal projects, travel, family. Life feels so busy that friendships often get pushed to the margins. And it's not just me or Rosie. Philosopher Alain de Botton once said, one of the great sorrows of life is how often we aim to connect deeply, but the logistics of modern existence tear us apart. So what's behind all this? Why does it feel so much harder these days to sustain meaningful friendships in today's world? Let's explore the role of capitalism and grind culture. To understand the loneliness epidemic, we need to look at how capitalism and grind culture shape our relationships. Modern life is demanding. Long work hours, side hustles, and the constant push to do more leaves so many of us physically and emotionally drained. By the end of the day, the thought of socializing, whether it's a coffee with a friend or even a phone call, can feel like too much. I've experienced this personally. Sometimes after a full day of work and then editing videos and then doing something else with my partner, I just want to disconnect, not reconnect. Studies have shown the increased work hours and the pressure to be constantly productive directly impact our social lives. A 2015 study published in the Sociological Quarterly found that people with more demanding jobs report lower levels of social interactions outside of work. And when you add to all of this the stress of financial insecurity, it's no wonder some of us don't want to spend too much time with our friends. Economic mobility also plays a huge role in this. So nowadays, many people move around for work, education, or their personal purposes, which also happened to me. I moved cities multiple times, and the connections that I built in those cities have been kind of lost. Pursuing dreams and opportunities is a natural part of life. It kind of costs you losing your friends, or just not staying in touch as much. Because with some people, staying in touch becomes much harder. You can just go and hang out, you have to text all the time, and not everybody likes texting, and eventually those relationships fade in the background. There's also a very important thing that is becoming more and more popular nowadays, is the pressure to evaluate relationships through a lens of success. In a society that prioritizes achievement, friendships can sometimes feel transactional. The idea of networking seeps into our personal lives and leading us to subconsciously judge relationships by their perceived value. Are they ambitious enough? Is it a good connection to make? Are they successful enough? And again, I speak from experience as an actress and a YouTuber, I guess. This happened to me to think when I meet someone who is a director or who is working in this industry, to think, oh, it's such a nice connection to have because they're part of the network. And I'm pretty sure that happened to everybody, because everybody keeps talking about networking in the cinema industry is so important. And there's a lot of pressure in this as well. So you kind of want to be liked by the people who are important. So we focus on those things instead of focusing on the human qualities of these people. Alain de Botton also writes, "Capitalism teaches us to appraise people the way we appraise goods, for their utility." This is also a deeply alienating mindset, because human connections aren't really about utility, they're about presence, care, and shared experiences. Yet the relentless focus on career and financial success can make us reluctant to invest time in relationships that don't immediately serve us. At its core, capitalism encourages us to prioritize productivity over everything else. And as a result, our relationships' lifelines are often neglected. Media, social media, and the rise of hyper-individualism. Of course, in today's world, it's impossible to ignore the presence of media and social media in shaping our relationships, or maybe the lack of thereof. Every day we're bombarded with an endless stream of news, much of it deeply unsettling. Wars, climate crisis, economic instability, financial stress. It's an overwhelming mental load that leaves so many of us emotionally exhausted. I don't know how about you, but I read a lot of news on a daily basis, and sometimes it really may feel like it's just too much. Social media is another example. It's funny because it kind of promises you connection, and you're all so connected, you know what the other people with your friends are doing on a daily basis, more or less. But it also, of course, amplifies anxiety. First of all, we scroll through reels, TikToks, YouTube videos, whatsoever on a daily basis, seeking just quick dopamine hits. Even though those brief moments of distractions that feel really good, they rarely bring true satisfaction. I believe it's something that probably Mina also mentioned in her video. Again, because everybody keeps posting everything what they're doing with their friends, it kind of can make you feel a little bit anxious. So for example, you ask your friend to hang out and they said that they can't on that day, and then a few days later you see them post a very nice picture of them with their other friends, and you think, well, they just didn't want to hang out with me, you know what I mean? It's so easy to track what other people are doing these days that it often leads us to just overthink, if that makes sense. This is something that I think happened to everyone in high school, when you see somebody go to the party and they didn't want to go with you or stuff like that. So this over-reliance on digital interactions comes at a cost. Also, everything is on our phones now, food delivery, grocery shopping, therapy, and even our friendships. Texting has replaced face-to-face conversations, phone conversations, and in some ways it's really more convenient to be just texting and doing everything on your phone. Whenever you feel bad, you can just text your therapist, for example. It takes a lot of pressure from your friends as well. At the same time, it changes our relationship relationships in general with people. All those digital things can make it too easy for people to avoid the effort and vulnerability for meaningful connections with other people. The era of self-love and hyper-individualism. There are a lot of bloggers out there who talk about self-love, self-care, healing era, and so on. And let's be clear, self-care is very important, but in its extreme form, it can be morphed into hyper-individualism. Those influencers posting things like, I'm in my healing era, so I don't need no one, they would say, put yourself first and cut off anyone who don't serve your peace. It's a very seductive message, especially for those who have been hurt by other people before in the past. But it also fosters an attitude of isolation. The narrative of I don't need anyone isn't always an empowerment. It's often actually fear. Please drop a comment down below if you know what I mean, or if you don't agree, it's totally fine, but in my experience, it was exactly this. Fear of vulnerability, of being put down, of being judged, of being not liked enough, of navigating the messiness of those close human relationships, because they're not always rainbows and cookies, you know? I see a lot of these influencers, and I even wanted to do stuff like that. People promoting the healing era, the confidence, and so on. And they have those two key points. So be friends with people who are very successful if you want to be successful, which is true, but it's also questionable. And always prioritize yourself, which is also a nice message if you don't think about it too deeply, because in any kind of relationship, there will be moments when you will need to compromise any sort, even if it's just choosing a different cafe because they don't have a vegan option or something like this. And I see a lot of radicalization in those statements. The pandemic's lasting impact. Of course, there was the pandemic. We seem to forget about this nowadays because we have so many new things happening all over the place, but it also reshaped our habits a lot. There's a lot of studies about how it influenced school students, how important that was, even though when I was in high school, I thought there would be a dream to not go to my school. It only showed us again how important it is for people to socialize, to be in those social situations. And during the pandemic, for months, we would stay without talking to anybody. We wouldn't see our friends. I remember it felt really weird to be socializing again and to have any kind of physical connection with people. And I think it must have a longer impact on the way we interact with people nowadays. The pandemic also boosted a lot of digital stuff, and we all saw the success of food delivery. It was really on a different level during the pandemic. I'm not going to mention all these studies, but it is no news that it is in our nature to be around people. It's the most basic need. People can't live without other people unless it's something pathological or a mental illness or something like that. No judgment again. So what can we do with this loneliness? Let's try to make a conclusion. I also want to add that often choosing not to interact with other people isn't always about wanting to have a good time on your own. It's about going to what's familiar. At least that was my case in middle school. I often avoided socializing because I had very low self-esteem. I thought it was ugly and unworthy, and I kind of hated myself. So this self-perception made me so anxious. I'd constantly fear that I would be not liked or not accepted. So instead of taking a chance at trying to enjoy myself, I'd retreat to isolation. And I enjoyed spending time on my own, but I was still in this cycle of self-doubt and avoidance. Looking back now, I see that a lot of this was actually rooted in fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of not being accepted and being seen for who you really are. If loneliness is a modern epidemic, how do we start to heal it? First, we need to recognize that friendships, like any relationship, require effort and intentionality. Some friends feel like they're so high maintenance that they kind of feel like a burden, then maybe you should try and find someone more emotionally available who would actually try to do the same thing. It's very important that both of you guys make an effort in maintaining maintaining your friendship. The words around us, capitalism, social media, hyper-individualism, won't make it so easy, but it doesn't mean impossible. For me, as the new year approaches, I've decided to make friendships a priority. I want to spend more time with emotionally available people, friends who are willing to show up. And actually, as Rosie wrote, I believe there was a study that showed that people actually prefer hanging out with people who don't want to plan too much time ahead, which is my case. I like to plan ahead. So actually, people really enjoy people who be like, come over right now, let's spend 1 hour and don't do anything, just watch a movie and eat sweet stuff, rather than let's do this in 1 month, go for a coffee at this coffee shop, but at 4 o'clock I will have to leave. Well, you know what I mean. It's not just about finding the right people, but it's also about being a kind of friend that you want to have. So this means making an effort, reaching out, and being consistent, and just try your best. And one of my resolutions personally is to hang out more, not just scroll through messages and quit text, but truly showing up. A coffee date, a walk, or even just a phone call. I want to create moments where real connections happen. Friendship isn't that, but it needs our attention, care, and time. What about you? Please leave a comment down below and say if any of this resonated with you. Are you having troubles with your friends, or you don't have any? What are your plans? And thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please, again, if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments and leave a little like to show me that you like this video. I would appreciate it a lot. Thank you again for watching this video. My name is Natalie, and we'll see each other very soon. Bye bye.